ongoing meeting till we finish all the 7 evaluations we have to do. And for the record, those present in the room are myself, President Martinez. Just so we understand, this meeting will be conducted in open session because it is a review of the general manager WA. When we do the general manager's review and evaluation, those are done in open session.
And the 2 other commissioners are not able to.
And we have 2 other commissioners. Commissioner Santos has recused himself, brother-in-law to the general manager, and Commissioner Taco has also recused himself. First cousin. So, having said all of that and gone through all of that, we will start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have prepared, as in years past, a performance evaluation summary in the form of a spreadsheet showing up performance of the metrics, performance metric used in my evaluation since 2018. Okay. The most recent data is in the column labeled FY24, and everything in red is a new entry, including, should be on the remarks page if there's any errors. I will. Okay. I'm not aware of them, but I'll point them out if I see them as we go through. Okay. So starting with...
and just before you start, Mr. Chairman, as we did yesterday, the Guam Waterworks Authority is a company of how many employees, and what's our gross annual revenue?
We are somewhere around 300 and some employees currently. That number is...
Plus or 350 plus or minus, yeah.
And in terms of revenues, I think we are a touch above 110 million for fiscal year.
Thank you. So 350 employees, $110 million. And so I bring that up, Mr. Chairman, because those of us, particularly with all of our private sector background, GWA is one of the largest, use the word companies, service providers on Guam. If you were to rank it with the private sector companies, it would be in the top 10 in terms of gross revenue, and probably easily in the top 20, if not the top 10 in terms of total employees. So the managers that we have, both for power and Miguel for water, are managing very large companies that have to provide, in this case, essential services. Many private sector companies can close at night, close at 5, close at 10, right? We provide an essential service. Water and wastewater is 24/7. And so the management that we need to attract, retain, and evaluate are running some of the largest companies on Guam, both in terms of revenue and in terms of employment. So I wanted to make sure that we put that on the record, so our ratepayers know that we're evaluating people that are running large organizations, and in this case, this is a 24/7 essential service.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that, Commissioner Sanchez, because everything you said is very true. But the only other thing is that these 2 utilities also provide health. In other words, they affect the health of our island. One directly with water, no problem with the water, illness. But more importantly, water and power are essential. Hospital, clinic,
To our citizens, our ratepayers.
Citizens in their homes, so they're really critical, essential. So now, you're military, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We provide water to defense. Yeah. The goal is, like we did with power, someday to get to one company. Power is almost entirely there. Waterworks is on this way. Power only has to try and take over the distribution and the base behind the fence. Everything else they provide. We provide lots of water. Who else provides water? We do our wastewater services. They have one very small wastewater service down at Eroding, but other than that, we provide wastewater services even to the military.
And as a further example, the receiver that runs solid waste, they're paid $4 million a year to run solid waste, which is an essential service, but it's much smaller. Revenues are much smaller. Our managers, both utilities, we were never put into receivership. US EPA wanted to put us in receivership back in 2002, but because of the CCU and the management retired, we continue to hire, we have never needed a receiver who would be far more expensive, as shown in the hospital, Department of Education, and GSWA, where you're spending millions of dollars just for two, three, four people to run those entities or run a portion of those entities.
Okay, having said all of that, got down to the business of
How'd you do?
how did you do and
Okay. So
what is,
we'll go by criteria number.
yeah, 1.1.1.
1.1 under reliability of water and wastewater systems. So the metrics here are, first one is reduction.
Sorry, do we want to do the summary that Mr. Commissioner Limtiaco on the scoring, so for the folks that are
I
watching?
don't think we need to, but we can. If not, would you like to go through it?
Just quickly,
Sure,
because,
Just so people understand how we're scoring.
Right. So we have a rating, formal rating schedule, and of course, in this case, we're doing it in public, and it looks at the management of operations, the management of finance, information, people. It even looks at personal competencies, strategic perspective, building teams, communication, judgment, achievement focus. And our managers are rated on a scale of 1 to 5. 5 meaning performance significantly exceeds expectations in all essential areas of responsibility. And if a manager self-rates themselves a 5, or if any of the commissioners rates them a 5, we have to provide a written proof or some statement of proof to justify getting that rating. A rating of 4 means the manager exceeds expectations and is above satisfactory, above standard performance with results exceeding expectations. A rating of 3 means the manager meets expectations and is satisfactory. A rating of 2 means inconsistently meets expectations and marginal performance. And a rating of 1 means fails to meet expectations and is unsatisfactory service. So that is a scale of 1 to 5 by which we evaluate our management.
Okay. Again, at 1.1, reliability of water and wastewater systems, the first criteria is a metric of main breaks per month. And for fiscal year 2024, we averaged 2 main breaks per month, and that's consistent with the prior year and down significantly from 2 or 3 prior years. We were as high as close to 6 breaks per month, so that has been reduced, and we're maintaining performance. The next metric under that criterion is post-storm outages. For fiscal year 24, we had 0 outages, post-storm outages, 0. We didn't have any major storms. So both the number of outages and the duration are both at 0 for this year, as opposed to last year with 14.7 for number of outages. And
last year was Malware's year.
Right. And post-storm outages, max day duration 29. For 1.1.2, water booster pump station reliability, this year's number averages at 93.2% operability, down a little bit from 95.4% in the prior year. The next one is reduction in frequency or duration of SSOs. Our number of SSOs average per month is 4.5 for fiscal year 24. That's down from 5.9 in 23 and down from 6.3 in 22. So the trend is downward.
Can you just,
Sure.
for
Go
the
ahead.
public, just tell them what's SSO?
Sewer system overflows.
But overflows on the street, or in your house,
Or in a pump station.
or in a pump station.
1.1.4 is sewer pump station reliability, and this is for fiscal year 24, averaging 82.7%. That's down from 86.8% in fiscal year 23. Both of these, the pump station, booster pump station on the water side and the sewer pump station on the sewer side, are reflective of the continuing challenges we are having with pump and motor burnouts, having to replace those and maintaining critical. We do have a lot of work orders for our stations in order to improve these numbers.
And as we go forward, we have plans to improve and upgrade these facilities, right?
That's correct. That's if you recall, the 2 resolutions that were passed in the last session will allow for the design work of these upgrades to both the gravity main and the collection system, the force mains and the pump stations as well. Okay. Production well reliability is the next one at 1.1.5, and the metric is active wells per month. We are averaging 95 for fiscal year 24. That is up from 89 in fiscal year 23, so upward trend there and improvement. Sorry, I think I forgot to update that marked line there. It should trend back up. Okay, and then also standby wells available. That number is 1, and we only have 1 well on standby. That's the same number from the prior fiscal year, and this is reflective of if they're not running, they are in need of pump and motor replacements, and we only have 1 on standby. So rather thin margin, and again, we'll need reflective of the challenges we're facing with the electric.
But in prior years, we had 4, 6, 9
Yeah.
versus 1.
Yeah, we had made a concerted effort to bring it up, and I think 20 and 21, I don't know if you recall, Ron Tapasna did a really great job there with pushing to get those wells on standby. Let's see, the next metric is 1.1.6, wastewater treatment plant reliability here, and the metric is upgrades that have been completed for MPDS permit compliance, and so we're at 75%. So of our 4 major treatment plants with NPDS permits, only 1 remains with not upgraded to secondary treatment with the current NPDS permit requirement. So the Hagåtña plant, until it gets upgraded, this number is going to stay at 75.
And that's something we're going to work on, but it's way down the line.
That's okay. And then 1.1.7, maintain service pressure levels. So the number of monitoring sites we have for in the pressure zone realignment system. For the we didn't have a metric for this before, which is why you see the narrative in prior years. In starting last year, we implemented a monitoring program, a regular monitoring program, and so we now have 197 monitoring locations in 52 pressure zones. And so the monitoring locations consist of either hydrants, booster pump stations, or wells, which represent the service pressures in those zones. And at the monitoring sites, the way this is determined is when we monitor the pressure, does it fall within the acceptable range of pressures in our levels of service that were established in the 2018 master plan. So out of all the 197 monitoring locations for fiscal year 23, 78% of the sites were within range, and then the remaining sites were either above or below range. For 24, I suspect that the number is going to be similar to this, hopefully potentially a little higher, but I'm pending final data on this. I didn't get all that data in for this evaluation.
For this.
And then the last metric on this is lower no pressure calls, the number of calls per month. We are, for fiscal 24, we are at 35 on average calls per month for low pressure or no pressure. And oftentimes these are related to breaks or leaks or service outages when those calls come in, but we track them and monitor them, and we're at 35. Prior year we were at 31 for fiscal year 23. I suspect that in large part we weren't getting as many calls specifically on the months following the storm, because everybody knew what issues we were facing. The trend is slightly up from the prior year. Okay, moving on to 1.2, compliance of water and wastewater systems. The first metric is 1.2.1. With regard to drinking water standards, the number of NOVs per year, and again, we have 0 notices of violation for drinking water quality standards. And then the second metric is the issuance of our consumer confidence report or annual drinking water quality report results, that was on time in fiscal year 24, as it has been in all prior years. For compliance with, the next one is 1.2.2, compliance with effluent discharge permit requirements. I would point you to the narrative. That's right. So I have provided a narrative explanation since we don't have specific metrics on this, but the information in the narrative is updated from the prior year. So anything in black is what was presented in the prior year for justification of our performance on this area. For fiscal year 24, again, this is with regard to wastewater treatment plants. Our compliance upgrades to secondary treatment has been completed for 3 of the 4 major plants. And the Hagåtña wastewater treatment plant, the feasibility study for the secondary treatment upgrades is due in August of 2031 based on the partial consent decree, as you referenced earlier, Mr. Chairman. But in all other cases, our permit compliance has been acceptable. And then the next metric is 1.2.3, which is maintaining internal QA/QC processes to improve our compliance. So again, you can refer to the narrative here. There are several initiatives that we have implemented, including staffing up in the AGM positions to improve management and supervision and quality control, but also the establishment of some internal positions for compliance monitoring. You can see that the items highlighted in red have been changed from last year. So we were able in fiscal year 23 to fill the AGM position for engineering. That is now vacant, and we are in active recruitment. So that has changed for this fiscal year. And then with the field compliance officer, we did indicate last year that we were working to fill it. We did have someone in that position, and then unfortunately that position is now vacant as well. So high turnover, kind of affecting our...
There's a competition for our employees
Yes.
from both the federal government and the contractors working on all the military projects. So, but you know, the thing about it is it just shows that we do have quality candidates throughout our organization, because they're the ones that still are, you know, the people are going after. And, you know, you mentioned Ron Boston earlier in your talk.
he's now working there.
He's now running, I believe he runs the Penna water. You know, he's hard.
There's additional narrative and metrics on that under the human resources section. But just to move on with this, there were some advancements. We do have now closer coordination between operations and compliance and safety, and we are conducting internal inspections prior to our regularly scheduled compliance inspections with the quality. So we're getting out there before the EPA inspectors are there. We're making sure that everything is as it should be and is having a measurable effect in the number of minor deficiencies that are identified in EPA inspection. So by doing this in advance, taking care of some of the smaller items that we're able to before they do the inspections. Some of the major deficiencies, those are observed and identified because of a pending CIP project that will, so for example, at wastewater pump stations, as you mentioned, we do have contracts in place now to help us upgrade those as part of the partial consent decree. There are some stations that have deficiencies that can only be cured by construction, which will occur once we execute these CIPs. Right. Okay. The next metric here is 1.2.4. These are customer compliance programs, and there's 4 different metrics here. The first one is fog inspections per year. For fiscal year 24, that's 148, and down a little bit from the prior year at 196.
Miguel, but your 148 is consistent with prior to last year,
Yep.
138, 156. Last year, there was just more inspections we were to get, or Marwar related? Or
Well, we had some assistance during MOAR with additional personnel kind of doing some of those inspections. And then last year, or this past year, we didn't have that, and our one inspector did conduct inspections, but not as many as the prior year. The highest amounts you see in 18 and 19, those were when the compliance and safety had additional support. We are working to get additional recruitments, but it has been difficult to fill those positions. The next metric is SSOs due to fog by year, and you can see for fiscal year 24 we are at 20, which is the same number as for year 23.
Down from all the
Down significantly.
Steady
from the
trend
prior
downwards.
years. The third metric here is cross connection and control program inspections per year, 29 this year, as opposed to 47 in the prior year. And then for number 4, cross connection and control, these are notices to comply and notices of violations that have been issued to enforce the cross connection program. So those are up. Despite the lower number of inspections, the number of findings and issuances of NOVs have increased. I think part of these are driven by data that comes in off of the our meter reading programs. So if we have any kind of flag from the meter indicating a problem with the flow, then that will prompt an inspection by the CCU program, in addition to his regular inspections. So part of the reason also that this number might be lower than in prior years, with the extended outages, we probably had more flags, but with this year, it's possible we could have had less flags with the current operation. The next one is 1.245, court order and consent decree requirements in terms of compliance. So again, we are at 98.9% complete with the court order, and the total number of items completed remains at 92. So again, until we finish these last reservoir projects, this number will stay as it is, and once we're done with the reservoirs, it'll be okay. Moving on to page 2. This is now under 1.3, system safety, security, and resiliency. 1.3.1 is physical security improvements, and the metric here is theft incidents by year. We are reporting in fiscal year 24, 18, the same number as in fiscal year 23. Down from prior years, but up slightly from the low that we experienced in fiscal year 22.
And your note says these are many of these are just theft of our copper wire?
Those were the spikes that drove it up in fiscal year 19, but what we've been tracking now for these numbers, it's fuel and batteries. So I don't know if it's been related to the cost of power, but we do have break-ins and theft of batteries from the generators and then fuel from the 1.3.2 is improved cybersecurity. So you can see there's 5 metrics here. There were 3 in prior years, but we added a couple more to update our cybersecurity. But you can see for the employees trained by year, for fiscal year 24, we had 460. So these are obviously multiple trainings per employee, depending on how they fare. So as an example, everybody gets a basic cybersecurity refresher training, but we also run tests on phishing just as internal security checks. And if anybody fails those internal tests, then they have to go for retraining. And so there's some of that goes on, which explains the number. And then there's also additional trainings that are done when new employees come on board. So 460, that's up significantly from 341 in the prior year. So the trending is up, which is good and where we need it. Cyber incidents reported by year is the second one. This year, for fiscal year 24, we had one incident. I'm still waiting on the details for that. Provide those to you privately via email. But there was one cybersecurity incident, obviously not critical, but up from the 0 from the year before. And then metric 3 is a measure of the findings, resolved findings from our 2018 net penetration testing. If you recall, that was done on a contractual basis. So we had gone through up through last fiscal year, we were 90% with getting all of those issues resolved. However, that metric, we indicated in the notes that we would provide an updated metric as we were getting, that study was outdated and we had done additional assessments. So in 2022, there was a USCG assessment that identified 10 findings, and 9 of those were resolved. So 90% resolution on those findings. And the one that is remaining is currently in testing. It involves multi-factor authentication for access to some of our systems. And then for metric number 5, there was an additional USCG assessment in 2023, 1 year later, which identified 12 findings, 11 of which have been addressed, so 92% complete there. So these, moving forward, we will drop the 2018 cyber assessment, and we'll just continue forward with any that have current findings that need to be resolved. Okay. 1.3.3, ensure a safe work environment. This is measured by the number of reportable injuries that we report into OSHA. So we are, for fiscal year 24, we had 3 reportable, up 1 from the prior year, but consistent with our, we hover between 2 and 3 per year. And then 1.3.4, emergency response plan and readiness. I'll refer you to the narrative there on page 3, the narrative. As you can see, we have fiscal 24 continue to contribute to reviews and updates, not just to our own emergency response plan, but to the island-wide Government of Guam emergency response plan. So we did have interaction with Homeland Security on that. Internally, the AGMO has stated our emergency response plan and actually conducted a specific typhoon response plan table at the top, specific to GWA, with all of his operational managers and supervisors and leads, and he invited Homeland Security staff to participate and other stakeholders to participate. And then they incorporated lessons learned from Typhoon Mawar. So we continue to make improvements in our emergency response plan and readiness. In addition to that, in terms of repairs from Typhoon Mawar and hardening, those projects are ongoing.
On that tabletop exercise,
Yes, sir.
so you're taking the lead on that, right?
GWA did. For continuity of operations, there's also some information on the narrative. The only thing, this outlines what we have done in the past to update our scoop, and just the only thing that has changed in the current year is we have made progress on the utility service agreement that is being drafted through our One Guam program in cooperation with the Navy. However, we did pause some of that. We expected that to be done in June, at least the first draft to be done in June. There was a pause to that, and in addition to the provisions that we were previously talking about, we have now some additional cybersecurity related provisions that the Navy wants to work into the utility services agreement to make it more expedient for us to avail of their assistance in maintaining cybersecurity within our systems and where our systems interact. So that is the only thing that's different with respect to affecting our continuity of operation. Okay, and then 1.3.6 is improving water resource and aquifer protection. Again, I would refer you to the narrative. I'm sure the board members will recall the One Guam Water Resource Information Program MOA that we signed jointly with WERI and USGS, and this was after we completed the NGLA monitoring wells project, which rehabilitated many of the existing deep observation wells for the aquifer, but also added several new wells into that inventory. So it expanded the aquifer monitoring capabilities, right? So we continue in fiscal year 24, continue to honor our obligations to maintain those wells that are outside the fence line. And we have also been working with USGS and WERI to try and execute the One Guam Water Resource Information Program funding requirements. And also, there's a little more on this later in the summary, but we've been working with them to conduct technical workshops specific to water resource management with our engineering and operations. So those all contribute to our improving our water resource and aquifer. And then the second metric there you can see is we continue just monitoring in accordance with the MOA. The CIP work was completed in fiscal year 23, so that you don't see that anymore in that. Okay. Moving on to 1.4, capital improvement program and system renewals. The metrics here are they're divided into 5 subsections. So 1.4.1 is update our water resource master plan. There's 2 metrics here, which first one is the review or updating of our water resource master plan. So we undertook an update that has been ongoing for the end of 22 through 23, and we are a little bit behind on getting that out, but we have it in draft final stages right now. We're just buttoning up some of the final information, and that will be published. We are hoping to get it done before the end of the calendar year. And then for the 5-year CIP, which is the second metric, as you know, we have a brand new 5-year CIP that you approved and now the PUC has approved. And so now that is on the books. A lot of work to take. Okay. The next one is 1.4.2, which is achieving our target capital improvement program spending plan. And for fiscal year 24, our target, which is in the parentheses in that column, is our target was 64.8 million based on our FY20 through FY24 CIP. Encumbrances, actual encumbrances for fiscal year 24 exceeded the target at 65.4 million. So we are on track with what our spending. Okay. There's also some narrative on page 4 on the target CIP spending plan, mostly in relation to, again, our CIP encumbrances for bonds or for all funding sources. But then also there is some information on our IFCIP targets, which, as you know, for most of the 20 through 24 5-year CIP, we did not meet targets because we were not provided with adequate rate relief as requested from the Public Utilities Commission. So there is a metric later on that covers that, but I just wanted to point out that our levels of available CIP or revenues to invest in CIP projects and annual system renewals like pipe replacements, that has been underfunded because of our lack of rates. Okay, Next is 1.4.3, which is achieving our water system renewal and expansion goals. There is some narrative on that on page 5. And essentially, the items in red highlight the progress we have made there. So for the Ta'i Road, Toto Cañada Loop, we've completed everything in the original construction. There is one pending change order or task order for Oxo Ashley that we're still working to, engineering still working to close out. So we're very close with that. But you can see the other projects in recent history, Pauly Ferdinand and Casimiro, those have been completed in prior years. And then for the programmatic line items in our 2018 Water Resource Master Plan related to pipe renewal's water system expansion, we have made some progress in awarding contracts and initial task orders for just the rehabilitation and replacement program, which is your general line replacements, and then the special ones, a 2-inch pipe replacement program. We finally got that off the ground. We're just pending issuance of the notice to proceed based on insurance from the engineer. And then for the asbestos cement pipe replacement program, that has been awarded, task order 1 issued, and it's in progress. So finally getting that off the ground. And those are also reflected in the metrics under 2 and 3 here, where you can see the contract task order being issued for the ACP pipe replacement and the 2-inch galvanized pipe replacement programs. Then moving on to 1.4.4, achieving the wastewater system replacement and expansion goals. On page 5 and 6, there is some narrative there. And like, again, what is in red is reflective of what's new for this fiscal year. So we just wanted to highlight that in fiscal year 24, we expended $1 million in initial design funding to complete design work and issued an IFB for construction on our first project on the septic tank elimination program, expanding the sewer collection system and getting new customers on those new sewer lines. That bid was closed on October 11th, so we're waiting for engineering to finish the bid analysis and evaluation. So we should have an award for that sometime in early fiscal year 25. And then in addition, 2 contracts, IDIQ contracts for design build of sewer collection and transmission systems have been awarded and the initial task orders have been negotiated. You approved those in the last session. So those are also metrics for that criterion. And then the third metric under this is a sewer connection revolving fund, the number of active accounts. We still have only 3 active accounts on that, but in October we did get approval from the AG's office on the updated rules that Teresa had sent in. And so we're poised now to get those now, rules in effect and take advantage of the additional funds that the legislature had appropriated to go into that sewer loan connection revolving fund. Moving on to 1.4.5, achieving water loss reduction goals. So again, there is on page 6 an update to the narrative for this criteria. We do point out our progress with the pressure zone realignment project, completion of phase 1, phase 2 design being 100% complete, and construction for phase 2 has been awarded, and phase 3 design at 70%. Also, progress on the DMA implementation. We are now in fiscal 24 was year 3 of the 3-year plan. However, because of the difficulty in establishing or constructing some of the improvements that are required to put in these metering stations, we've tried to piggyback off of the pressure zone realignment whenever we had a pressure valve vault going in, we would add meters to that if it lined up with where the DMAs were. So insofar as we've completed EZR construction work, we've gotten some of those taken care of, but there are still many district metered areas that need construction. And so while we have advanced that, with using existing contracts, what we have also done now is awarded a design contract specifically for those valve stations under the DMA program. So that contract has been awarded. And then we have increased our staffing with the leak detection teams and conducted additional training, and we are poised to add one more leak detection team now that we have the 5-year financial plan approved. And I think that's it for narrative portion. And then for items 2A and 2B, which are the water audit for fiscal year 24, I'm not able to complete this at the moment because our September numbers are pending reconciliation with the Navy on some of the Navy water purchase numbers. So I don't anticipate they're going to move much, as I've been mentioning to the board and also to the PUC in our regular semi-annual water loss control reports to the PUC. What we're finding in the field with our active leak detection and all the work that has been done to fix those, we are seeing that the pipes are just beyond their useful service life, and we're not going to see tangible deductions in the real losses until we can replace those pipes, which is the reason for the importance of the award of those IDIQ contracts, which are now underway.
That's the CIP also funded out of our.
You know those pipings, the old ones?
2-inch galvanized.
Yeah, the old ones. You're not going to go in there and just pick them up and wait, right? You just let it go. I mean, we're going to put the new pipe.
We're going to put the new piping in. A lot of it will depend on how much room we have in the easement, so we might have to take some of that out. But for the most part, our intent is to install new ones and either, if we can, abandon in place the existing lines, remove them if it's
in
cutting.
conflict.
It's in conflict. The other thing that we are looking at for the ACP pipe is we sent a couple of our engineers to investigate trenchless construction to see what options we could achieve using pipe bursting technologies, where you can replace the line or even upsize the line by pulling it through the ACP and it just bursts the pipe, but it doesn't require you to trench. You just do 2 large excavations
Either end.
on either end, and you push through one side and you pull through the other side, and how you lay the pipe, and then you just do small excavations at the service. So that is, you know, a more advanced technology that has not really been utilized much on Guam. So the first step is getting our engineers to understand that process and the benefits, how to properly design it, and then translating that into our engineering consultants, making sure they design it the way we specify, if we can take advantage of that. So those will be incorporated into these task orders for the ACP placement design work.
We have tried that system though already, right? We did do the big.
Outfalls?
No, the collection pipe. Down.
Oh, that was CIPP. That's
CIPP.
lining the inside
Just
of the
the
pipe, but
lining?
not
Okay.
bursting it.
Not bursting it.
But
So the burst-
it's very similar in that you're not trenching to
Yes.
rehabilitate the pipe. You're just
Right.
doing it from the
So the
manholes.
bursting you were at the outfall.
We've done horizontal directional drilling to push pipe through an open borehole, but we have not pulled it through an existing pipe. This would be a
Okay.
first.
You know, and then, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, you know, we're now, the first bond financing was in 2005, and I know you're about to talk about financing, but from a CIP point of view, right, we built something approaching $1 billion of infrastructure, you know, like the Northern Wastewater Treatment, which we were able to get funding from the Department of Defense versus from ratepayers. But I remember, and you can update this as we move along, not so much in today's interview, but 2/3 of the rate increases of the last 20 years has been fund the capital improvement plan to get the money necessary to rebuild the water and wastewater systems like the agate. We now have a wastewater treatment plant in agate we never had, right? We had to fix outfalls. We got the military to pay for Northern, but the ratepayers are paying for the rest. But being able to get, for you to convince the military to stay with this plan to rebuild the Northern wastewater treatment plant, that was $170 million, something of that magnitude.
The Department of Defense funding?
Yes.
173 million in total, specifically for the Northern District plant, probably closer to 140.
140,
One-
okay.
yeah.
So, and that's the largest wastewater treatment plant on Guam, to serve the largest population
Yes.
base
Yes.
on the northern half. Not only the, and that's, yeah, on the water side, the military gets their own water, but on the wastewater side, UWA provides all, takes all the military wastewater. So,
For the northern
for the-
installations.
yes, for the north, right. But that, I mean, we all know the largest population base in Guam, north of Tamuning, more or less, right? And is serviced more or less, is serviced actually by the Northern Wastewater Treatment Plant. And I bring it up because as we enter, there's two things that are related. One is the significant amount of capital improvements that we have undertaken in the last 22 years. And you've been with us now 10 years? 8, 9? 8 years, okay, 8 or 9 years. So you've been,
2016 to 2014.
okay, so 8
I'm
years.
sorry, to 2024.
Okay, so 8, you're in your eighth year.
I'm finished. I finished 8. I think I'm on my 9th.
Okay, you're beginning your 9th year. You finished 8. But the two things is the magnitude of capital improvements as over the last 20 plus years, which you've in many ways you built. The planning got us the first 10 years, and then in 8 of the last 10 years that you've been with us, you were building these things, right, and managing that program. And the capital improvements program is when people are, no one likes rate increases, but you can't fix things for free. And the calculus that I had done before, which I'm sure has changed, not too much, but 2/3 of the rate increases of the last 20 years, plus or minus, have been to build things, right? Unlike, I'm still waiting for my grandfather's school to get rebuilt, hospitals to get rebuilt. We actually build things. Yes, it does. Our water rates are a little bit higher than they were 20 years ago, but we have assets in the ground that protect our water, protect our ocean, process our wastewater better, deliver the water better than what we inherited. And that's at the heart and soul of a good capital improvement plan. And then a financial plan we'll begin to discuss to pay for it and yet to keep water as affordable as we can keep it. But I just wanted to get that perspective on the record, that one, we have built a significant amount of infrastructure. You have managed a significant amount of that construction since you have joined us in the last 8 years, including some key projects with using the Department of Defense money. I remember in the discussions that I was in with you, the chairman and DOD, they were going, hey, you better spend this money correctly, wisely. We don't want to get in a fight about it. And they funded it, and you built it, right? And that was at no charge to ratepayers. Now we have to operate it, but that capital expense was essentially a grant that collectively you were able to negotiate, we were able to negotiate, and then you built the wastewater plant, which is it's one of the most important assets we can build for this island community that serves the northern half of Guam, not just the civilian community, but military bases up in Anderson and now Camp Loss is connected to it. And you also managed a process in which the effluent from the Northern Wastewater Treatment Plant is now used to cool the generation, or is going to be used to cool the generators that are used at Ukadu. And that's 3 to 4 million gallons a day that is normally pulled out by GPA down at, it's ocean water now at Cabris, but up at Ukadu, instead of pulling it out of the aquifer, 3 to 4 million gallons a day, we're using wastewater effluent from the nearby wastewater plant that you constructed and plumbing that over to the generator. It will cool it and then send it back, and then you will deal with having it discharged properly under our US EPA permits and manage that discharge. But the connection between rates and capital improvements nothing, none of us have built a house for free. None of us live rent-free. Cars aren't free. You have to spend the money. And somewhere around 2/3 of the rate increases of the last 20 years have been actually put in the ground to build things. But as we move forward, I'd love to continue to monitor that relationship of, if there is a rate adjustment that needs to be done with our ratepayers, where's that money going, and are we spending it wisely? And is there something tangible that we can show? And UWA and you have done a great job of, you can drive down to Agate and see a wastewater treatment plant, and that wasn't there 25 years ago. And that's
You know, like you mentioned, we're building a new old house, we're refurbishing an old house.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
We didn't go back there to start over.
And now we can focus on distribution, because the first consent decree was really to manage the wastewater issues. Remember, we were sending Hanamtaki into the ocean, right? And that was why we were on the verge of being put into receivership. And yet we've avoided that, right? Because we have competent, capable management. But there's a cost to competency, and there's a cost to building things, right? And but 2/3 of the rate increases, something of that magnitude, has been to fund actual infrastructure construction. And as we move forward, Miguel, it's something like another $500 to $600 million of CIP is projected currently, knowing that construction costs are just going through the roof right now. But that's our next guess. Another $500 million plus or minus of capital improvement. Yeah, I mean, we know it's going to be plus, exactly. CIP planning, which this is what you're describing, that you've put the next phase of planning together. Compliance, we have a new consent decree, essentially, because you've pretty much checked off the old one, but they gave us the new list, and that's where that additional requirement to fund CIPs is emerging, and there are more things to fix. It's still an aging water system and wastewater system, and then
Do it sometimes, now's the time.
yeah. But I wanted to get that on the record, that not only is there a plan, it's significant. And if you're wondering where your rates have been going, it's being spent on rebuilding, refurbishing, or building brand new assets to put into our water and wastewater system, provide better service, cleaner water, and protect.
Moving on, just to complete 1.4.5 with water loss reduction. The third metric there is our leak backlog. At the end of any given day, what is the number of leaks that we have? And as fiscal 24, our target has been less than 20, as the board is familiar. I report every month. And our average for fiscal year 24 is at 13. It is up slightly from the prior year at 7. We're not doing as good as we were last year, but we're still under our target.
Well, as we move forward, it gets older.
Yeah, until we start replacing the lines,
yeah.
right? Okay, that's great. Okay, moving on to 1.5, which is long-term strategic objectives. 1.5.1 is advancing GWA and DoD system integration. I'll refer you to the narrative on this. Narrative describes the work that we've undertaken and potential interoperability opportunities that we've explored. The language in red, which you'll see, shows the latest for fiscal year 24, and there have been several technical meetings and workshops undertaken to explore such interoperability as interconnection of the GWA water system and Anderson Air Force Base raw water transmission lines from Marble South to their system. In the north, they have several pump stations, and there was some exploratory meetings on the potential for GWA to provide a alternative, and this might be more related to resiliency. If anything should happen on the Air Force's side, what could GWA do to transmit water to the base? And so there have been several technical working sessions on that. Also on PFAS treatment, pilot testing, potentially joint pilot testing, and then the exploration of a joint treatment facility for wells where we have in close proximity to Navy wells that also require treatment. And then also exploring and technical meetings on joint hydraulic or combined hydraulic model in order for us to improve master planning between both systems. So these have all occurred in the past year, and they are advancing these potential interoperability opportunities. 1.5.2 is in terms of long-term strategies, improving our investment grade credit ratings. We are, for fiscal year 24, the same as we were in fiscal year 23, so we're still maintaining our investment grade credit ratings. However, you can see in the remarks section of the table, in February of 2024, Moody's affirmed us at stable. And these ratings correspond, the first two ratings correspond to our bond issuance, or refunding bond issuance. And then S&P affirmed a negative outlook on us. So we still maintain our investment grade rating, but the negative outlook, as you are well aware, is reflective of
General government.
number one, the general government. Number two, our lack of a 5-year rate path.
path.
So in February, we didn't have this approval
Yeah.
of the
With
new
the
5-year
5-year
rate
rate.
plan, right? So if we go back out and talk to the credit rating agencies, some of the reasons why they had our outlook at negative go away. So there's that. There's also, we've finalized the partial consent decree, which gives certainty to investors. So these all have potential to change and improve our rating here. So we've been working hard to do that. And then, of course, Fitch, we did not use for the refunding, but they still rate us based on prior bonds that were issued. And they maintained our triple B, but they affirmed a negative outlook. Okay. On 1.5.3, balancing our long-term debt financing and revenue financing, there are a few metrics here. First is the ratio of bond versus IFCIP per year. And we want more IFCIP expenditures.
It's internally funded CIPs
revenue funded
versus debt.
Versus debt finance. And so in terms of a ratio, the lower the ratio, the more IFCIP we're funding. So the number now is 12.76. That reflects an improvement over the prior year at 40.05, right, that ratio. Both the numerator and the denominator affect that. So I think the expenditures of bond financing have maybe been the same, but the expenditures of IFCIP improved in fiscal year 24, and that is reflective of having a bit more of a rate increase closer to what we asked for than in the prior year, right? And then metric number 2 is bond dollars expended per year. This is expended but not encumbered. So we were reporting 14.2 million here, down from 16.6 million the prior year. And then you see number 3, the IFCIP spending, 1.1 million, up from 415,000 from the prior year. So that's an increasing trend. And then our renewal goal versus IFCIP by year. So our target in fiscal year 24 was 3 million. We spent 1.1 million, so short of our target. In the prior year, the target was the same at 3 million, and we spent only 415,000. So improvement overall, but still short of where we want it to be in terms of long-term strategic. The next is 1.5.4, which is improving or maintaining affordability of service. The metric here is average annual bill by year, and this is based on actual billing data provided by finance. So we are at 1,114 average residential bill per year, over the course of the whole year. So if you divide that by 12, you're less than $100.
$90.
Yeah. So that is down slightly from the prior year at 1,163. Reflective of usage patterns and not necessarily applicable rates. And then the second metric there is the combined water and sewer bill as a percentage of median household income. And the affordability metric here is between 2 and 4% based on US EPA standards, and we are at 1.91%. And that's based on 2019 median household income value, 58,289, and that's for the 2020. Okay, there is also some information on water affordability in the narrative, so I would point you to page 7 and 8, 1.5.4. Again, you can see the work that we have done to advance affordability, including the analytical study that we completed as part of the prior 5-year rate plan, advancing legislation. So in fiscal year 24, we had a couple of breakthroughs. In March of 2024, the Public Utilities Commission issued an order approving our proposed rate design structure. And if the Commission recalls, that was part and parcel of that analytical study. So we had the affordability program, the customer assistance program, and then the rate design structure. So this is structure that was approved was a 3-tier inclining block for water rates, and then for residential wastewater rates, a base charge and a volumetric wastewater rate, which is different from the flat fee that we are currently using. So the implementation for that, as approved by the PUC, was sometime in the future. The discussion was that we would look at incorporating it into our next 5-year rate plan. And so when we proposed the 5-year rate plan, we indicated that we would not implement the new rate design structure until the true-up for fiscal year 26. So we anticipate doing that, and we are working towards that right now in preparing for the true-up that we would be submitting. In addition, another breakthrough in fiscal year 24, our legislative oversight chairperson introduced, Senator Perez introduced legislation to establish a customer assistance program, largely based on our recommendations in the analytical study. So GWA management worked with the Senator's office to advance the legislation, provided testimony in support of it, and it was signed into Public Law 37-112 by Governor Leon Guerrero in July. So we are now, the only thing that did not provide was funding. But we have essentially legislative approval on a customer assistance program, which was part of the reason why Georgetown voted or recommended against its earlier implementation, is because they doubted that we had the authority to do it without legislative authorization. We did not necessarily agree with that, but we undertook this anyway just to be certain of it and ensure that we could move forward successfully. So small steps, but significant one. Okay. And then 1.5.5 is improving or maintaining liquidity and reserves. You could see that our days, the metric there is our days cash on hand goal versus actual. And the goal is 120. And we have seen 319 days for fiscal year 24. And 411 if you include the OMRF. So based on that reserve, that additional reserve fund being counted, the liquidity numbers are in excess of the goal, which is good.
And the source of the, I mean, it's a fantastic achievement, right? I'm just trying to, in my mind, in the cash, so the cash that accrued to that, how do you attribute the strong growth cash?
So when it's up from 264 or 352 from the prior month, right? But as our unrestricted reserves grow, then that grows our days cash on hand. So the OMRF it's formulaic, and it's based on our bond covenants. So as we increase our debt service requirements, I believe we also increase the amount we put into the OMRF.
But essentially, we're improving our differential between cash coming into the company, spending, building up reserve, for the future needs, internally financed cash. I mean, it's an excellent improvement, and I just wanted to hear, articulate how that was happening, because the numbers are 264 to 319 and 352 to 411.
Yeah.
That
I would point out that the goal of 120 days was something that was established after the initial adjudication of the last 5-year rate plan, the first couple of years. In light of the pandemic, the 120 days was established. However, in terms of metrics for similarly rated credits or A-rated credits, that 120 days is on the low end. Right? So it's a goal that we have because, and I think we reduced it because of the pandemic, but in terms of the way credit rating agencies look at us, it's that if we were at that 120 days, we would be kind of on the lower end,
Right.
and it wouldn't be a credit positive to us. I think
But we're improving
we're
that.
improving, which is good. Our current rate, our current days cash on hand are probably mid to high range, right? So that's where we would want to be for our current credit rating. But if we want to be better, if we want to have a higher credit rating, we need numbers higher than this. Okay, and then 1.5.6, Chief Personnel Compensation Migration Objectives, the long-term strategy for recruitment and retention for the organization. For fiscal year 24, the objective was 25%, and we achieved migration to 25%, and this is based on 2022 market data.
But this still means, correct me if I'm wrong, that the average pay for our team, our employees, still only at the 25th percentile
Nationwide.
compared to the rest of the nation
That's
for
right.
identical job.
Right.
So, but as you said, our ability to attract and retain employees required us to find ways to migrate the average pay of all of our team higher, and which we've done, but we're still only at 25% compared to other like size water and wastewater companies. Which means if you went to other places, their employees are paid far higher wages, benefits than what we're paying ours.
In most places, yes.
Yeah.
And locally, even though we're meeting our scheduled objectives, we are still losing people to the federal government and to private contractors.
Their salaries are higher than ours. But Miguel, in light of this, we also don't have, both for GPA and GWA, we passed a resolution and set a policy goal.
Right.
Getting to 50 percentile. 5 years, we're going to 29, FY 29. And, that's what we have to do. But at least it's clearer. But before, when this was first started, the goal was admirable. We're still finding our way through how much we have, what can we afford. It's an affordability thing. So there were periods of time when there was no movement. And we wanted movement. I think everybody wanted movement, but sometimes the realities don't allow you to do that. But I think now we've set up a plan to where we're going to be able to make this movement. We've clearly identified. Correct me if I'm wrong, Miguel, but I think the initial movement was 2 million to get to this stage, and then subsequent movement will be.
Sorry, Chairman, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think you're right in terms of just the general magnitude of the migration. It would be in that area, in that approximate amount for the initial movement, and then subsequent years could potentially be lower.
Yeah.
And that's out of our $140 million of annual revenue.
Right.
Yeah, and the other thing, the Chair, reminded me of as you brought it up is other utilities are raising the pay of their people faster than we are.
Yes.
Because just as we creep up to the 15, 20, 25, we do another study, we
And
find
then
out
we're at 5%.
everyone's up to, now we're back to 20 relative to everyone else because everyone else is
Yeah.
paying their utility workers better and paying them higher wages more quickly than we do.
And-
So
and
like you said, Chairman, we're managing the migration while still trying to help our ratepayers, not raise rates any higher than we absolutely
And I
have to.
think one of the key things that, like GPA, but specifically in the water section, all the water employees throughout the different companies in the mainland, private and public, okay? And their people have to pass tests for water operator 1, 2, 3, 4, EPA test, wastewater operator 1, 2, 3, 4, supervisor, whatever. They have to pass tests. It's the same test our people have to. And so therefore, our people are proving themselves because they have to pass the test. If they don't pass the test, they can't move. And so our people are proving themselves. And so we really need to make that compensation so we don't lose more. Because we lost a good engineer to our environmental engineer. I think she's the only one on the island. Now she works for the military. And that's the fact of life. So, and our water operator who's operating the FINA water treatment plant, he came from us. And, that shows you we have the people who pass the test, have the skill sets that are required, and we just need now to pay more.
To attract and retain
To
them.
attract and retain.
Yeah.
So 1.5.6, that's it, right? Over that?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
So, moving on to 2.0, finance. 2.1, that criterion is financial capacity to meet operational needs, and our metric is revenue budget to actual by year. And so, for fiscal year 24, our budget was 128.6 million, and our actual, 128.4 million, and our actual was 128.6. So we
met our goal.
we met our goal, and that's as opposed to the prior year, it was budget at 109 and actual at 108, so we were short of the goal last fiscal year. So there was an improving trend on that criterion. The next is 2.2, and the metric there is O&M expenses, budget to actual by year. So our budget is 100 for fiscal year 24 was 102.3 million, and our actuals were at 111.5 million. This again is largely due to increase in Navy water purchases.
And the year before that, we were not meeting our goal. We had a 107.5 for FY23, and maybe that's because of the storm. I'm not sure.
Well, we cut back to make sure we had adequate coverage. If you look at the debt service coverage for that year, it was 1.3.
Yeah, that's right.
So when you have to reduce spending, you do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do. And then for the next metric, 2.3, meet or exceed the minimum debt service coverage requirements for fiscal year 24, and these are unaudited. We're at 1.4.9.
1.49. Yeah. Which is better than the 1.31 and 1.30, 1.31, 1.30 of the previous years.
Right.
Okay.
2.4, maintain cash reserve fund levels. So the first metric is unrestricted cash reserve goals to actual by year. So the unrestricted cash reserve goal is 3 to 4 million. And I think this goal is really low, but our actuals are 25.7 million. And this is, again, unrestricted cash. Does not include indenture restricted reserve funds. And then the second metric is specific reserve fund targets versus actual by year. And so here it's 15.2 million as the target and 9.9 million as the actual for the year. And prior years, prior year was 13.5 million as a target and 14.5 million as actual.
Did the rate stabilization have something to do with that?
In the prior year?
Yes, yeah, yes.
I
We
believe
did.
so, yeah.
Okay. So as we correct that problem and build the rate stabilization from that,
Right, the target.
we'll hit those targets.
Right.
Okay.
The next metric is 2.5, identify cost efficiencies and reduce waste. I would refer you to the narrative here. On page 8, that 2.5, paragraph 2.5 there, you can see the text in red for some of the work that we've done. We initiated a performance audit for operational divisions, determine our conformance with the levels of service objectives, just to make sure that our operations folks are operating efficiently based on what we've established in our 2018 Water Resource Master Plan. And the draft results of that audit were issued in September, pending finalization with dated operational data from the fourth quarter, but results indicate an improvement in our performance in this area, but additional recommendations are being reviewed for SOPs and operating procedures, revisions to those to improve our efficiency. The other item I would point out as a metric here is we did plan to, in the prior fiscal year, initiate a upgrade to our procurement processes. And in the fiscal year 2024, management completed the development of and launched the procurement cloud application, which is intended to automate and streamline most aspects of our general and engineering procurement processes. So there was an initial learning curve, a little bit of griping and pushback on how difficult it was or how obtuse it might seem, but after that it's expected to decrease the administrative requirements and improve the process. So it's got off to a little rocky start, but it seems to be smoothing out right now, and we are in full stride in implementing that, operating under that. The next section, 3.0, Human Resource Management. 3.1, the criterion is to improve recruitment and retention. The first metric is average days to fill position, and you can see for fiscal year 24, we're at 86 days on average to fill a position. That's down or up from 56 days from the prior year, but the year before that we were at 122 days. So this has been up and down, and I'd say we're probably not where we need to be on this metric. The number of the high turnover rate obviously does not help us, and the board's well aware of the reasons for that. The second metric there is average full-time employee vacancies. So 51 for fiscal year 2024. That's up from 40 the prior year, up from 35 in fiscal 22 and 31. So this trend is not where we want it to be. It's increasing, and this is essentially because of the high turnover rate, the number of losing to federal government and private sector. 3.2, improving and maintaining succession planning. I again would refer you to the narrative here. The language in red is what has changed since the last year, and we continue to struggle with employee recruitment and retention. Significant departures from both engineering and operational divisions. We've lost experienced engineers and licensed operators, leading entities because of the compensation issue, which we've already discussed. In fiscal 2024, we did propose, though, to you updating our compensation plan, and you approved it, including an aggressive migration plan to stem the staffing losses and to improve retention. This is a step we're taking to improve things, but the numbers don't lie, and our performance here has been less than stellar.
Looking at formal succession planning.
Yes, so those are some of the additional initiatives, and then also we continue our emphasis on testing and certification and operations. And, as we bring on new people from the ground up, they are willing and eager, and, within a year are being able to test, get their level 1 operator certification. So we're making progress there. As I've discussed previously with the board, and has been one of my objectives since I started here, we've been attempting to integrate more engineers into operations, and that is reflective of a couple of prior hires that we have made with engineers with operational experience being kind of assigned to assist with operations and asset management. Also with the movement of the former chief engineer into the AGM ops position, and having an engineer lead that operational division. That all aligns with what our overall objective is, and part of that is just based on my own experience. It's a lot of the really good wastewater and water infrastructure engineers that I know also are, licensed operators in their states, because that makes them a better engineer. And vice versa. I think engineers make good operators, and given our disadvantage here on Guam of being able to have higher level 3 and level 4 certified operators, staff with a 4-year engineering degree, if we open up a track for them in operations and make it track, can easily fulfill those positions, receive those certifications, and then help us to become a better utility. So that was all part of our early planning when I first came on board, and we're still taking the steps we need to fulfill that.
It's a hard thing to do, but I'm going to tell you, one of the things that maybe give you credit for, Miguel, is you've looked at trying to find ways to get people to move up, because you are right. You have level 1, 2, we thin on level 3, thin on level 4. Supervisors are. I think that's a good idea. Hope it, we're trying different things. But
I would also point, I didn't put this in the narrative, but it's in the detail of the training statistics that I reviewed when putting this together. We have conducted significant employee training in several of the trainings this fiscal year. Maybe not for the first time, but more frequently this year than in years past, have included trainings that will help our operations staff who have the propensity to be supervisors, to give them some of those soft skills. So we're trying to help succession planning that way as well, by providing those trainings.
These trainings are in-house?
The combination of in-house and provided by outside parties.
The instructor in-house?
For some of the in-house stuff, it is our senior supervisors and managers, specifically for operator training or employee onboarding. But frequently we use online resources for training, or partners through US EPA. They have a program where they provide technical assistance and training. They pay contractors that have a nationwide presence to come out and provide some of this training. So we tell them specifically what we need: pump and motor training, VFD training, and they will send experienced individuals out to conduct those training courses. 3.3, improve employee satisfaction and pride. The metric here is the conduct and review of employee survey. So we did update the employee survey in fiscal year 23, but we didn't do any updates in fiscal year 2024. So, we don't do these every year, but we try to increase the frequency with which we're doing it.
Well, I think last year was the first time we did an up in the prior 5 years. I mean,
I came on board
it's
in 2016, and we did our first one when I was here in 2017, and then we didn't update it until 23.
So It's a work in progress.
Yes. 3.4, enhance employee training and development. The first metric is in-house training for employees by year. 92 separate training courses were offered in fiscal year '24. That's up from 14 the prior year, so we've made some considerable progress.
Significantly up over all the prior years, going back to 2018.
Yeah. And then that average participants per event were 23 people. Other information. Second metric is the number of Guam EPA certified employees by year. We are at 85, up from 81 in the prior year. And then,
You know, the other thing is when our employees get their certifications, like when they get up to 3, they can go anywhere in the States. And there are 3.
yeah,
And I may be off a little bit, but in terms of magnitude, I know I'm pretty close. In January of 2002, I think we had less than 10 certified officers. It was one of the hot buttons of US EPA. Get people trained. And the thing that I'm most proud of that Miguel has really continued is that our people can be trained and can be very capable and are achieving the certifications.
Yes.
And I remember when we first came on board, there was a little fear of the employees, you know, gee, am I going to be able to do this, right?
Yeah.
And yet now it's almost assumed, right? And that's a reflection of our team and our employees, and management has been able to get them the training as needed, encourage them to take the training, be trained, and use that training. And you see it with the improvement in operations, you see it in the improvement in less accidents, but just a much better run system with with a largely homegrown, great payers who also happen to work with a tremendous amount of pride. And, I'm always struck by, we've all seen the pictures of the boys and some ladies in the middle of a road, their bodies
covered by water.
half covered by brown water.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's bubbling water. Trying to deal with it, and they are all certified, right? And that's a testament to the management that we had and continue to have. Please, Ken, I'm glad you're keeping that up very well.
one other thing I'd just like to refer you to the narrative for metric number 3 under on page 9. Again, in red is the additional information. So we have under that One Guam Water Resources Information Program and that MOA that we signed, we made sure to incorporate technical workshops provided by WERI in coordination with USGS, specifically for engineering and operations personnel to improve their stewardship and responsibility for the water resource, right, and the aquifer protection. So those workshops are we are availing ourselves of those technical workshops. We were in discussions in July with USGS and worry about putting one on before the end of the calendar year. But I think there's 2 a year that since we just signed that MOU, and that's just starting to gain its stride, hope to see those more regularly employed through the workforce here. Okay. Moving on to number 4. This is information management. The specific criteria 4.1, public filing requirements. The metric here, the first one is our annual report filing dates. So for fiscal year 24, we're not going to file that until 25, but the 23 and 22 annual reports are pending issuance. We anticipate getting those out in November this year. So we're close on that. And the second one is our US EPA annual water quality report filing. We, again, were on time and filed that. For the 2024, June of 2024 is when we filed the fiscal year 23 report. So June of 25 is our deadline to report for fiscal year 24. So we will make that deadline. The third is our consumer confidence report the OPA CCR. We filed that in, for fiscal year 23, we filed it in August of 2024, and we have not yet filed it fiscal year 24. Okay, and then for our bond and DAC filing dates, we've met the requirements and filed by June of 2024, so we're all current on that. 4.2, improve accuracy of public and media communications. I would refer you to, again, to the narrative. This highlights some of the work that we have done in fiscal year 24, but we've continued to improve our public notification and information outreach through both social media platforms and traditional platforms such as SMS text messaging. And we've also expanded the use of targeted email notifications for outages, repairs, etc., using MailChimp to communications function in the dispatch office. In addition, we this fiscal year expanded our podcast series to include 5 informational episodes on the ongoing litigation, just to educate the public on that. We've also maintained and improved our weekly employee updates. We are including a partial consent decree notification on that, and also we will expand partial consent decree project or compliance related notifications through various formats, including social media posts to meet the requirements of that in the partial consent decree for their environmental justice initiative. So those are additional ways that we are trying to improve and broaden our public communications. The next metric here is measures the number of SMS text issuances by month. And so for fiscal year 24, we averaged 18, down from the previous 23. And I think that's up from fiscal year 22, which was at 11. I think the 23 numbers were inflated because of the number of notifications we were sending out in relation to the storm recovery, right? And then the next one, 4.3, broaden public outreach for our CIP and system improvements. Metric number 1 is the number of water resource master plan public meetings. We have 0 because we have not yet updated the master plan, but when we do, we will have outreach on that. And then for 5-year financial plan and CIP public meetings, we had 8 in fiscal year 2024, and that includes at the legislature, my presentation, the CFO made a presentation, the AGME made a presentation on the CIP, and then we had 4 PUC public hearings or public meetings on the financial plan and the CIP to inform the public. So pretty significant effort there, up from previous years. There is also some information on narrative 4.4, and that is in relation to CCU reporting. And the only thing to report in this fiscal year, what we've changed is primarily with the engineering and CIP reporting that we've been doing, kind of as an attachment to the regular CCU management reports that we give you monthly. We're working to improve that and streamline that. Those have been incorporated into fiscal year 24 reports. Towards the end of the year, you'll start to see them in my summary presentation as we'll work those updated graphics into our reporting to you. And then the last one is meeting all compliance reporting requirements. This is based on, of course, the court order filing dates. That's the metric here. And we are 100% compliant with 4 times a year compliance reporting to US EPA. So that covers all of the criteria. And the only other thing I wanted to point out to the commissioners is I did provide a supplemental 1-page supplemental list of accomplishments for fiscal year 24. And these are just in addition to all the regular stuff, these are some of the things that stand out. Yeah, and I just want to point out 7 items here. The first is we've finalized our partial consent decree with US EPA and DOJ, and that happened in August of 2024 when the judge entered the partial consent decree via order. And so this is the culmination of over 7 years of difficult work and negotiations with US EPA and the Department of Justice. Second,
Miguel, I'd like to, I need to tell you this, that's a big one. Because there was, I remember your discussions, your briefings with us, and whenever we talked about partial consent decree, EPA wanted a lot of things. They were quite adamant, they wanted fines to be certain level, and they wanted to, I forget the way you put it, where they wanted, my mind's going out on me, getting old. But they wanted to hit you the minute something went wrong, and you said, wait a minute, I can't remember the way you said it.
but I think that they initially proposed to us a very significant amount of fines and penalties. And we were able to get them not to assess any as, as part of the signing. So stipulated penalties exist for violations or non-compliance with the provisions further down the road, but we were not hit with initial fines and penalties that we were required to pay once we signed the partial consent decree. So we avoided those penalties and fines, and yes, they did want a significant amounts.
Yeah.
And we pushed back on that hard because it doesn't make sense for us to be submitting money to the U.S.
them.
Treasury. We would rather
When we need them for the project.
we would rather invest those dollars into projects that would
I
help
remember that
and benefit the
discussion.
ratepayers.
Hey, that's a big thing.
What I remember is the first consent decree was largely negotiated by new management and a new board. And the sophistication of the second consent decree and the trust that was earned by the operations, and yet US EPA is going to be US EPA, and they're a tough grader, and they want to maximize as much compliance, and you almost want to say they want to maximize penalties, but there's the fourth floor of every region US EPA is for the attorneys, and that's what they do. But your ability to negotiate with very little, with no, I'm not sure how much the chair was involved, but I remember how much I was involved. My sense of it is you grabbed that bull by the horn. It was really your first time. I mean, you inherited the first consent decree. You worked to get this second consent decree in place. It wasn't easy. It took time, a significant amount of time, and you still maintain the creed that we were successful. The first consent decree, US EPA wanted everything that you were completing by 2018, 2019, and 20. They wanted it done by 2010. And we went to the court and we said, look, you're going to price water beyond the reach of people. Fines that they wanted to impose, we'd rather use to fund solutions, right? And you did you did exactly the same thing. You recognized it was better to use fine money as fixed money instead of penalties, and you convinced US EPA to do it when they really didn't want. They really would. I think they get points for penalties, right? And you battled that, and it was you needed very little involvement from us, unlike the first one. You were really you were the sole, the man, the professional between US EPA and the ratepayers in terms of what they wanted done, how fast they wanted it done, and whether they wanted to fine you for things that you had inherited that we had not yet met standards that they want. So I really appreciate what you went through, because what we went through the first time, how it's not easy to negotiate these consent decrees, and it takes expertise.
They wanted even more.
Yeah, and they were tough, but the fact that you as a manager could do it with, you got some feedback, but you really were informing us of the progress of the renegotiation, not, hey, I need some help, I need to figure this out, I need to figure that out. And you and your team, but you especially Miguel, was able to stay with it, and we have our new list, it's doable, and it's affordable to our ratepayers. Our rates, will go up a smidgen, but we're going to do it in a way that keeps water affordable and yet keep improving the system. Protect our water and protect our ocean, and that's your job. I really compliment you for your work on the second consent decree.
Okay.
Second item I wanted to point out, thank you, Mr. Chair, is the approval and passage of Public Law 37103, which authorized an additional $560 million in GWA bond authorization, but also established authorizing us a short-term financing or tax-exempt commercial paper program to help us reduce the cost of borrowing and our overall rate increases. So to me, this was a very
It's a big thing.
big thing for us. It's something that we
didn't have before. You brought us a new financial tool.
right.
Yeah.
And we planned this in the analytical, we started with the analytical study in our last 5-year rate case. We wanted to move forward with it. We proposed legislation that we didn't have we didn't have sponsorship to get it done when we initially proposed it, and we just had to keep put the pressure on and show why it was important and a good idea. And eventually we got what we needed in terms of support from the legislature, and we were able to push that through. And now we're in the midst of trying to get it implemented. So we've got the first step with the bond underwriters we just finished, and then we're moving quickly into the short-term financing.
And how this is all going to work. I got to tell you, Simon was here at the very beginning. And he did what they call capitalized interest. He didn't do that because he liked it. He did it because, you can't be paying for stuff when you have no money. So you push everything off, and that added cost, yes, but you don't have much of a choice. This was a broke utility when in 2002 there was no money.
Right.
At least GDP had some cash, and they were a going concern. This was not a going concern. Now this takes that concept of let's and we have a new mechanism now that'll help us. Not capitalized interest, but it's a better system.
And the ratepayers are the ones that are going to benefit, because the rate increases that would have been needed if we didn't have the short-term commercial paper program that you brought to us would have been much higher than the forecasted rate increases that we currently have before the PUC and currently have been approved, at least for each year. We revisit it every year, but we will be borrowing some more money. And this tool that you brought, I think it was something of the magnitude of like a 20% reduction in what you originally said. Without it, the rate increases would have to be
higher.
Now it's 20-25% less, because you and your team identified a tool that wasn't available to us before, or we weren't aware of it. You brought it in, and it's going to produce significant savings for ratepayers
And get project done.
while we still build things.
Right. We still don't think. Anyway,
Moving
that's
on.
a good one.
Number 3, we were able to obtain PUC approval under docket 1908 for our rate design structure for implementation in our current fiscal year 2025 through 2029 rate. So that is another thing that we've had on the books since 2020. When we finished the analytical study, we tried to get it implemented. We couldn't get the support even from the PUC. We kept at it, and we finally got it on the docket with a different consultant, thankfully, than the prior one with the PUC, and they were very reasonable, and we were able to answer all their questions, convince them it was a good idea, and they supported it. So that's in the hopper, ready to go with our true-up for fiscal year 26. Number 4, we approved passage of Public Law 37112, which authorizes our customer assistance program. We discussed this already, but that's a big accomplishment, I think, especially for keeping water rates affordable, assuming we can get the funding. Number 5, we completed the adjudication process for our 5-year financial plan and CIP.
This is the update.
This is the update. So, $898 million in capital improvements over the next 5 years. Stipulated 5-year rate plan, which provides the kind of certainty and rate slope that will allay the concerns of credit analysts and the rating agencies. So that was very important. And then we were able to avoid a credit card convenience fee for our customers that was proposed by Georgetown. And we were able to partially replenish under this 5-year plan. We'll be able to partially replenish the rate stabilization fund. So those are all wins in my book. Number 6, we successfully refinanced $133.575 million in Series 2024A and $51.275 million in Series 2024B bonds. That was in February of 2024. Those were rated as Baa2 stable and A- negative by Moody's and Standard & Poor's. It resulted in $14.5 million in net present value savings combined, 7% net NPV savings, and that's a 3.96 all-in TIC. There were $2.2 billion in orders for our refunding bonds. We were 11.6 times oversubscribed, and this was the first ever Guam credit tender offering in the financial market, so that's a big accomplishment for the GWA team. So that's 6. And then the last thing is just that we've continued to advance our quiet title action, and I know that the Superior Court orders have not gone our way, and so maybe you don't see this as a plus, but the fact that we were able to have the Supreme Court hearing, filed the petitions, we're continuing the fight, and we have now notably amicus curiae briefs filed in the Supreme Court by the governor, by the legislature, and by the Public Utilities Commission. All points to us, doing the right thing and being supported in doing the right thing by all three, well, 2 of the 3 branches of government. And so that took a lot of work and with the team, the management team, and I just like to point that out as an accomplishment for the fiscal year.
You forgot number 8.
What's number 8, sir?
Your negotiation in the defense, the Navy bond.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And, Miguel, that's again part of this one Guam concept that we all want. Really, this is a small island. You don't need 2 water companies. You don't need 2 power companies. You have a civilian community and a military community. You need 1 power company. You need 1 water company. That's all we need. And believe me, I think we're really getting inroads there where we're being able to, 1, convince the military that we're capable, okay, we can do the job. 2, that they can believe in us, that we're spending the money in the right places. And 3, that at some point it benefits them because they get out of a business they don't need to be in. Their business is defense. They shouldn't be worrying about, water and sewer services.
If they weren't in the business, then we also wouldn't be competing for the same pool of employees.
There you go. And that's a good thing.
And we handle all the wastewater now, right?
Not all.
No, they have one. They have one down south.
They have
there,
one
The
down
yes,
south.
APRA, they have the APRA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have.
We're on the verge.
But we're on the verge there.
Well, we should be. I totally agree with the chairman.
Yes.
I mean, we've proven we can run things. You've proven that we can run things
Proven we can run
more
things.
cost effectively.
Yeah.
So hopefully that can progress.
Just one final question, Miguel.
Sure.
On
Yes, sir.
the very first page, 1.1.4. Go and get those pumps.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah.
And I just have one last question.
Sure.
In the next year, what's going to keep you up at night? Keep it on 5-minute quick summary. But yeah, what keeps you up at night? I forgot to ask John the same question, but yeah, I mean.
So this is, the next 5-year CIP is a huge undertaking. We are, with the departure of the AGME, the recruitment and the pressure that is on our existing engineering workforce, these are all hardworking folks and they do great work for us. But this is a stressful environment for them, and there is certain attraction, I guess, if you want to go work for the federal government and not be so stressed out, get equal or better pay. And so being able to do all the things that we know we need to do, that we can set ourselves up with negotiations with with the EPA and set our 5-year CIP and agree that, you know, we can do all these things if we're given all the resources, and then we can go out and we can get the resources, and those are all steps that we're taking. But I don't have a lot of control over people leaving us. There's only so many levers that we can collectively pull in order to make sure that the machine runs right. And, you know, losing people, engineering, and the CIP, you know, being slowed down, not meeting our goals. And then, of course, you know, the potential impacts that could mean to the partial consent decree. Those will keep me up at night, as will, you know, the stress related to the ongoing litigation.
You're running a big company too.
And you've got some stress points, and I mean, that's not an easy list. I can see why it keeps you up at night, right? Because there's some real risks for our ratepayers, really, ultimately, and you know, they at some point they say, hey, I don't care what your headache is, you know, I just want water, I want wastewater services, I want it as low as you can get it.
And most of our consumers, you know, that's the thing. They want their service.
Yeah.
And
They take
then
it for granted.
And their only other stress point is when they get the bill.
Yeah.
But, you know, that number one, they need that service. I tell you, water and power are critical. You know, you want, and so, Miguel, I think if you look, you're providing 99%. Your service is level. Your service impact is 97%. I think. You know, 97% of the time, people flush the toilet, it goes down, it goes away. You know, so,
And it doesn't go into the ocean.
and it doesn't
untreated.
go. It's treated now. It's properly treated. Kudos. Okay.
One last thing I would like to say for the record. I know this is my evaluation, but it's as much an evaluation of my team. Everybody at the authority supports the work that we do, and we've got a great management team. I know there are rumblings, and you know, some people are not happy with the decisions that we make or the actions that we take, but we are doing our best to make sure everybody pulls their weight and does the work, and for the most part, everybody does. This is a good organization to work for.
You know, there is one final question I do have. You know, we have a system here where there's a general manager. There are two key people below you, CFO and legal counsel. And while they work for, we hire them. They're our employees. We rate them, evaluate them. They're supportive of you. The concept we have is they work with you to try and support you as we go through this process. So how's that team?
Sir, I can tell you that when I started, that wasn't necessarily the case, but it is the case now, and
Okay.
everybody is pulling in the same direction.
So you've got a good CFO
Absolutely.
and a good lawyer on team.
Absolutely.
And I'm always reminded that, you know, in a week, a new president will be elected to succeed President Biden. We have candidates for Guam Congress that are very competitive. And whoever wins, 48 to 49% of the voters didn't vote for them. So you can't please everybody.
please everybody.
You just have to do what
Your
you
best.
have to do. You do your best.
Do your best.
And
Okay. Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Miguel.
Thank you, Commissioners.
all right, thank you.
But, now we have to do a little bit of housekeeping work. Us three. Okay. So, who wants to go first?
Oh, you need the score, right? You need
Let's
the
do
scores, right?
scores.
You have the
I have my reading sheet, my score sheet. So,
when you're ready, Mr.
yeah, I'm ready now. So just go down
Okay,
the
starting with okay, I'll start.
1.1.1.
Managing operations 1.1.1. I gave a 4.
Okay.
1.1.2 I gave a 3.5. 1.1.3 reduction SSOs I gave a 4.
Mm-hmm.
Improvement in wastewater pump station I gave a 3. Improvement and maintenance of the well reliability I gave a 3.5. 1.1.6 I gave a 3.5, and 1.1.7 3.7, I gave a 3. For compliance of water and wastewater systems, I gave for
It's
1.2.
1.2.1?
Yes, sir. I gave a 4. For 1.2.2, I gave a 3.5. For 1.2.3, I gave a 3.5. For 1.2.4, I gave a 3. And for 1.2.5, I gave a 4.
Okay.
For systems, safety, security, and resiliency, the 1.3s. For 1.3.1, I gave a 3. 1.3.2, I gave a 3.5. 1.3.3, I gave a 3. 1.3.4, I gave a 3.5. 1.3.5, I gave a 3.5. And for improving the water resources, aquifer protection, I gave a 4. CIP program, system renewals, for updating our master plan and our 5-year CIP, I gave a 4. For target CIP spending plan, I gave a 3.5. For water system expansion goals, I gave a 3.5. For wastewater system expansion goals, I gave a 4. And for water loss reduction goals, I gave a 4. 1.5, long-term strategic objectives. 1.5.1, working with DOD, I gave a 4. 1.5.2, I gave a 3.5. For long-term debt financing and revenue financing, I gave a 4 for balancing it. For improving or maintaining affordability, I gave a 3.5. For improving our liquidity and reserves, I gave a 4. For achieving the compensation migration of our employees, I gave a 4. Under 2.0, Mr. Chair, managing. Oh, I'm sorry.
I have a 1.5.1, 1.5.2, 1.5.3,
Yes.
1.5. Oh, I have two, okay.
Would you like me to reread them again in that order, Mr. Chair?
No. Yeah. No, I got it. There's a duplicate on my rating sheet. There's two
Okay.
1.5.3. So as I wasn't following that. I got it.
I have 6 rows. Do you have
Yeah.
6 rows?
I have, do the 6 rows again.
Okay, sure. 1.5.1, advanced GWA DOD system integration. I gave a 4. 1.5.2, I gave a 3.5. Long-term debt financing, 1.5.3, I gave a 4. Improve, maintain affordability of service, I gave a 3.5. 1.5.5, I gave a 4. And 1.5.6, helping our employees migrate, I gave a 4. For 2.1, I'm sorry, 2.0, managing finance. For 2.1, I gave them a 3.5. For managing operational expenses, meet budget, I gave a 4. For meeting or exceeding debt service coverage ratios, I gave a 4. For maintaining cash reserve funds, I gave a 4. And for identifying cost efficiencies and eliminating waste, I gave a 4. You know, he brought that in under budget and with less revenue than he had before. 3.0, managing people. There are 4 rows, Mr. Chairman. I gave a 3 in all 4 rows. 3, 3, 3.
There's a 3.1, 3.2, and 3.4.
3.
Right?
There's a 3.3, improve employee satisfaction and
the
pride.
3.4.
And then a 3.4,
There's no
enhanced employee.
3.5.
It's that row is empty, correct, sir? So 4.0, ready?
4.0.
Managing information. Okay, for 4.1, I gave a 3. 4.2, I gave a 3.5. 4.3, I gave a 3.5. 4.4, I gave a 3.5. And for meeting all compliance reporting requirements for the court order and the consent decree, I gave a 3.
There's only 4 in that one? The 4.1?
There are five rows, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
4.1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, do it again.
Okay, no problem.
4.1.
No problem. 4.1, I gave a 3.
4.2.
4.2, I gave a 3.5.
Right.
4.3, I gave a 3.5. 4.4, I gave a 3.5. 4.5, I gave a 3.
That's the one. Okay.
Personal competencies.
Oh, personal competence.
Yeah. For strategic perspective, I gave them a 4.
Mm-hmm.
For building teams, I gave them a 3.5. For communication, I gave them a 3.5. For information search, I gave them a 4. For achievement focus, I gave them a 4. For judgment, I gave them a 4.
Either way. Okay. 1.1.1. Okay. 4. 4.2. 4.2. 4. 4.
The next,
4, 4, 4, 4.
okay, next section, the 1.3.1.
1.3.1, right?
Yeah. What's the next? That's the next section.
4, 4, 4, 4, 4.
Okay.
4, 4, 4. 4.4. 4.
The 1.5.1 now, right?
Yes.
4. Yeah. Go on.
4, 4, 4.
Okay.
3.1. 4, 3. Mm-hmm. 4. Okay, one is strategic perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I gave him 5 on that.
Mm-hmm.
Building teams, I gave him communication 4. Information shared. Achievement 4. Judgment.
I start from the top, 4, 3.5, 3.5, 3.5, 2.1, 3.5, 3.5, 3.5, gave him a 4, a 4. 1.3.1, gave him a 3.5, 3.5, 5, gave him a 4, 4, 4. 1, and a 4, 4, and 4 is a 4, 3, 5, 5, 4. Section, gave him a 5, 5, 4,
And for again. Oh, okay, three, four, one. Four. For the personal competencies, I gave them 5. Okay, thank you. We're done. So now, next thing we have to do is, unfortunately,
Remains.
we have 2 people remaining to be evaluated. We have a, I think I have. If you can get it quick, I think I have to tell you. So, oh, I have, Narissa, I got it. That's the one you gave me. Okay. So, Peter, you're gone on Saturday.
Yes,
You don't get back till the 21st.
Who remains?
CFO,
CFO.
Tulling, legal for GWA. So we have 2. You know, everybody knows. So I need a. We might have to hold this off until the 22nd of November. Yeah, because
Commissioner
yeah, I
Martinez
want
will
him
be
back.
back.
You get back on the 21st.
In the morning of the 21st.
Morning of the 21st. So we're looking at
How about the
following Monday.
before Thanksgiving, right? That's the following week.
The following week, Thanksgiving, right? Okay, and we have a CCU meeting on the 26th, right?
That's our regular meeting.
That's our regular meeting. So no, we're not going to consider those. We're going to go after the 22nd. So what do you two think? Want to
So-
do it?
Tuesday, if we wanted to do it before this meeting, it's a long day, but we
No,
could do it.
that's a long day.
That's a long.
Let's
How about, want to try Monday
Monday the 25th, the afternoon,
and
2
do
o'clock.
that's just the 2 remaining.
Just the 2
right?
remaining. Maybe we can do them both.
Can do, Mr.
Okay, so Monday at 2 p.m., the 25th of November.
So we would recess this meeting, Mr. Chairman?
To
And I'm sorry,
Monday,
what time?
2 p.m., Monday, the 25th of November at 2 p.m. Okay? And, you know, by that time, we'll, everybody back on board and any other, we can, the way this works, if we get a problem on this, so then what we'll do is we'll recess that meeting again. That's how we started. Okay? So, would somebody like to make a motion? Go ahead.
So, Mr. Chair, I move that we recess this meeting on evaluation to Monday, November 25th, 2 o'clock.
Second, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, nay, motion carried. We're in recess. Thank you very much.